Yeshua said it would be as in the days of Noah. We'll go back to Genesis chapter 6, and we see that those days were described to us in various ways. One of them is that violence would increase. And the word violence there, many of you would know the Hebrew word is Hamas. And as I'm saying that, I have an alert on my phone. Barry just got finished with recording with Hanok, and I refuse to turn this off, as I think it's a great reminder for any of us of what is going on right now in the land of Israel. And so just to start out with this, so this violence shall increase. I would really encourage people to go to on their phone, on App Store, Android, whatever you do there, and it's called Red Alert. The app is Red Alert, and it goes off as you're going to hear anytime that a rocket is fired into the land of Israel. So if that noise bothers you, understand this, that you and I have the ability to silence it. They do not. Well, with those encouraging words, good morning, Barry. I see you're back from the great metropolis of Grassy Creek.
Yes, and I survived. Had some good time to visit family and celebrate the honorable role of my mom, and in fact brought my mom home with me for a few days. So mom is doing well. I'm happy to say she's, for the most part, she's doing well.
Well, we've watched the news in the last few days. I hope that people are keeping up with what's going on. You can hear the red alerts in the background here on my phone. And I just got off with Hanok Young. They are having to go to their bomb shelter even in Modi'in. The other night, he texted me, and he had heard 14 explosions from the Iron Dome. And the Hamas has those that are launching the rockets right now have figured out ways to get around some of the Iron Dome by basically just sending up a barrage. You know, at first they used to do one rocket at a time. Now they figured out if they send up enough rockets, they can confuse the system. Something's going to get through. And at this point in time, we're starting to see the deaths of Israelis because of this.
I read a report this morning of a young teenage girl and her father that were running for cover. I think they were in Ashkelon area that tragically were killed. This is to say nothing of the extreme number of folks that have been terrorized and many that have been wounded or somehow physically harmed. I saw the story of a young mother I think it was in Tel Aviv, that did not have a bomb shelter. And she was squatted in the corner of her apartment, cradling a young, very, very young infant. And the look of terror on her face was, horrifying. She was terrified. What's going to happen to me? Netanyahu, I read a speech that he delivered. Is it political bluster? I don't know. I hope not. But he was basically saying, you started this. We didn't want this, but we are poised and we are going to invade. You got last chance to stop. If not, we're going to invade, and the land that we take, we're not giving back.
I would love to say that I believe his words.
I would if I could.
For those who are in this walk, somehow Christianity, Messianic circles have put Bibi Netanyahu in a place of wow, he's the most amazing thing since sliced bread. This is a man who is corrupt and is using the system and has for many years to try to keep himself out of jail. If he was willing to do something, he would have done something the last 15 times that he made that speech. Memories are short. Of most people, their memories are short. You hear the attack, the rocket alerts going off right now on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
People forget that this goes back to the Gush Katif pullout with Ariel Sharon. May he be judged for what he did in giving away the land that was rightfully not his.
The land he gave away is the land that they're using now to launch rockets.
Yeah, it is. And if people are wondering, well, it says on the news that this is all because Israel is evicting Arabs out of their houses. Well, you can go listen to the Israel update that Hanok and myself, it'll be up in just a few minutes after this program. But he explained that this is an area, it is actually, I believe it's the area just south of the city of David. Even the leftists of Israel state that this is land that is owned by Israelis, deeded to Israelis. And it has been in the court systems for decades now. And Israelis who own this property are saying, we won't rent. We want something. It's our land. And as I said, even the leftists will not disagree with that. But the Arabs continue to just live there rent-free and bring forth terror into Jerusalem from that area. So this is not just Israel all of a sudden just, evicting some poor little nice people because they did nothing wrong. You want the terror to stop. You want the Israeli rockets or the Israeli missiles to stop. It's very simple, very easy. Quit firing rockets out of Gaza and it stops immediately. Quit taking people out of their cars and trying to lynch them. It stops immediately. Quit throwing rocks at police. It stops immediately. Period.
Well, also, we're heading somewhere with this, and that is that another factor is that Ramadan has just concluded. And
isn't it amazing, Barry, that we have this festival of Sukkot in which it's a season of joy. We those of us in the United States, we go and camp out together and a little l'chaim together and all of that kind of stuff that goes along with it. We have worship times, we have teaching, we have all of these things. In Israel, they put up the sukkah, they have joy and dancing as they did the other day for Jerusalem Day. But for Islam and a day of Ramadan, it's a day of violence. Maybe there's something wrong with that religion. Just say it.
Yeah, well, you said it, and I agree with it. It's been purported and promoted as a religion of peace. You shall know them by their fruit.
Mm-hmm.
The fruit of violence is not peace.
No, and there's nowhere in the book of Islam, there is nowhere for peace in that book. There is no love spoken in that book. There is hatred, there is violence, and it is not the same the same God of the scripture of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is a demonic book, and I will stand with that. It is a demonic religion.
I agree, and let's go to the question of the day then, Mike. In a time of how do I phrase this? Why does Yah allow the prevalence of darkness in the earth? Why is it that evil succeeds? Here in America, immediately people would, in many corners, would turn to a political landscape. This is not about politics. This is not about one side of the aisle versus the other. That's a distracting fight. That's not That's not the real war that is going on. That's a small symptom of everything. We're talking about, as they wrote about in the scrolls that found at Qumran in the caves. Brad Scott did a lengthy teaching, and may he be a blessed memory. He did a lengthy teaching that I have on the war scrolls.
Yeah.
And in that, he methodically describes the prophesied last days war from Qumran and those that were living there, about the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. And he described from those scrolls a literal combat version of war, not just praying against. I have a theory, and that is that darkness prevails when those who are supposed to be light hide their light. Now, we might say, well, brother, I don't know what else you want me to do. I'm doing, I'm keeping the Torah. Well, we pat ourselves back on our backs as being Torah keepers. Basically, what that amounts to is we don't eat pork and shellfish. We show up to worship on Saturday, not Sunday, and we do Sukkot. Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot. So therefore, we keep the Torah. Those are first-grade elements of Torah. If we're going to be Torah observant and Torah obedient, it goes further than that. And the Torah talks about walking in covenant.
Mm-hmm.
The Torah talks about being adhered to, attached to, and invested in the land, being kingdom focused, yearning for the return or for the arising of the promised seed. We need Messiah to come and crush Hasatan's head. The Torah talks about rescuing your brother. We just went through that in recent Torah portions. That if your brother is enslaved, you find a way to get him out of his slavery. The Torah talks about just weights and measures. The theme of the Torah is righteousness and justice. We can't put on a kippah and blow a shofar and pray in a prayer shawl, a talit, and not say something when children are abused and enslaved, when Israel is maligned and hated, when violence is perpetrated against the land. We can't sit back and say nothing when injustice is going on in our own court systems. We have to be invested somehow. In the days of Gideon, we have to break these clay pots that we are and let the light shine. If we're afraid to break our clay pot, this stuff, if we're afraid to break down our flesh and overcome it, our light's going to be hidden, and darkness is going to win. That's my theory.
Yeah, it's. You asked the question, why does Elohim, Hashem, why does he allow this? He set things into motion. I don't understand his ways. It's way beyond my thought processes. He set things into motion, and we go back to Matthew chapter 24, and in verse 10 it says, "At that time many will be trapped into betraying and hating each other. Many false prophets will appear and fool many people, and many people's love will grow cold because of increased distance from Torah." Now, here's the question. Did he allow the increased distance from Torah, or is this a man-made decision?
Mm-hmm.
So that which that he is accused of allowing is actually the result and fruit of man's decision. The world today has made a decision to depart from the Torah. Christianity, for 1700 plus years, has taught that the Torah is done away with.
Mm-hmm.
So if we see violence, confusion, disorder, murder, and the like upon this earth, did he allow it or did man choose this? It is man's choice to distance ourselves from the Torah. Now let me say something that may even be controversial for those that agree with me many times. You cannot be Torah observant, Torah obedient, Torah pursuant without a love for Israel, the land, and Israel, the people.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Well, that makes two of us. You can eat kosher all day, but if you do not stand with Israel, go out and get yourself a bacon breakfast, because your kosher observance is of nothing if you do not stand with the land and people called Israel. That may be harsh, but I believe it. And these times in which I sit here at night, as I did last night, listening to the Red Alert app, knowing that that's people that I love, people that I know. I talked with, in the midst of it, Hanok texts me from a bomb shelter in his apartment in Modi'in, telling me how many rockets, how many explosions he was hearing. And then telling me his daughter in Jerusalem, who lives in an older apartment that doesn't have a bomb shelter in the apartment itself. You have to run down the stairs with your neighbors to go into a basement area that Ayala was not even, was having to get up in the middle of the night, run down to this, can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night in Gloucester, Virginia, and sirens are blaring? What do? You're just trying to figure out your consciousness right at that moment in time. There are people that are dying in Israel because of the stupidity of the political people, of politics, both in Israel, in Europe, and in America. The current administration has turned their back on Israel, and America will be judged for that.
Most of us don't understand I keep saying, want to think about complexity. It's not complexity. The reality of the situation. It would be the same as the country of Mexico declaring to our government that unless you return to us all the land west of the Mississippi to our sovereignty, and that you allow us to have Washington, D.C. as our capital, we're going to rain rockets on you and attack you until you give in. And the world, the nations of the earth, siding with Mexico and saying they're right, and giving them billions of dollars to buy arms from military arm producing countries, and they start sending rockets and destroying people in Texas and New Mexico and Southern California and Arizona. And then they develop rockets that start reaching into Alabama and Georgia and South Carolina. And we realize we got to do something. So we sent our forces down to the border, and the world railed against us. And then that there would be groups within our own ranks that would rise up and condemn us. And then there would be members of the only countries in the earth that would stand with us, and members of their own Congress that would rail against us. So, I mean, if that were to be our reality, that's Israel's reality.
Yeah.
That's what they're dealing with right now.
I saw a post yesterday from somebody, well, you know, this war is going to continue until Jesus comes and takes us home. Really? What would be your attitude? What would be the attitude of that person if someone was breaking into their own house? Well, it's just going to happen until Jesus comes and takes us home. Anybody think that I'm a little angry today? Yes, I am. Because
well, I wasn't going to so much as come right out and say, but there is a little edge today.
There is. Every time I see this, Barry, because I have friends, I have people that I am closer to in Israel than most family. I have friends that I have wept with. I have laughed with. I've had meals in their homes. I've sat with them. I mean, there's no way for me to really portray what I feel in these days when I see this happen and know that it could be stopped. And then for this rhetoric and, you know, for looking at Messianic Hebrew roots people who, you know, quit posting your silly cat trick when people in Israel are sleeping in a bomb shelter. Where's all the posts from Messianics that should be lighting up the internet, should be lighting up Facebook and whatever social media that you have? Where's all the posts? They're very few and far between. But I can find a stupid cat trick. Those are easy to find.
There is I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. There is a seeming reluctance in the house of Israel. And when I say house of Israel, the ones I'm identifying are those of us that are in the Hebrew roots community, that are connected somehow to the scattered tribes of Israel, the ones that are supposed to be focused on returning. There is a reluctance to be identified, but so far, with the house of Yehuda. The animosity between the two houses still exists to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But our restoration, let me say it this way, the only way the house of Israel gets to go home and the kingdom come and Yeshua return and reign over the earth for 1,000 years, the only way that takes place is that there is a meaningful, practical, relational return in connection with the house of Yehuda. You cannot be anti-Jewish. You know, we use the term anti-Semitic, and people's eyes gloss over it and they don't catch. You cannot be anti-Jewish. You cannot have an angst against your brother, your family, your blood and spiritual kin, the house of Yehuda. You cannot have this angst and anger and say, well, you know, they're kind of getting what they deserve. And I have that kind of an attitude in the back of your mind and be included in the restoration. Those that have such an attitude, Mike, will they not be among those that will be outside where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth?
I believe they're rightly judged accordingly. You know, this is you bring up something, Barry, of, well, they don't believe like I do. Okay,
And we don't believe like
I'm
they do. So we got to get over
yeah.
that.
So I'm blessed in one way. I'm an only child. That's why I act like I do. But for those,
If you could have only had a sibling, Mike.
Yeah, I know. You know, my wife has numerous, brothers and sisters. They don't agree. They don't agree on a lot of things. But you know something? In the end, there's a love that goes beyond the disagreement.
Yeah.
There's a verse in Isaiah chapter 11, starting in verse 17. He will hoist a banner for the Goyim, assemble the dispersed of Israel, and gathered the scattered of Yehuda from the four corners of the earth. Ephraim's jealousy will cease. Those who harass Yehuda will be cut off. Ephraim will stop envying Yehuda, and Yehuda will stop provoking Ephraim. Now, that is, in my opinion, a kingdom verse.
Agreed.
But why is it that people think they need to wait for the kingdom to come to put the verse into action? Why don't we go ahead and put the verse into action today? That if your word there of anti-Jewish, do I agree with everything that my brother Hanok Young says? No. Does he agree with everything I say? Absolutely not. But I refuse to back up from calling Hanok Young my brother, even to the point that I got disinvited from a whole country, not just a congregation, not just a church. I got an invitation canceled to a whole country because somebody came that had invited me to the country said, you called an Orthodox Jew your brother. He's not a believer like us. And unless you recant those words, we're canceling your invitation to this country. Well, you can imagine what I did. If anybody has to even, consider that I spent one half of a brain cell considering recanting what I had said, you don't know me very well. Just saying.
Oh, I have a dear brother and sister that was told by a congregation that if they came and ministered in my congregation, they were not going to be invited to the other congregation.
Mm-hmm.
And their response was, you're not going to tell us who we can and can minister to.
Oh, yeah.
And cannot minister to.
Yeah.
So our allegiance and bond with Barry and Laura is not going to be sacrificed to satisfy you. So they don't go back to the other congregation anymore.
It's craziness. It's absolute craziness because people don't understand what their true battle is, Barry. This is where the Qumran community had it right. They understood that there was a battle between darkness and light. Plain and simple. And when light leaves a place, darkness is empowered. Give you an instance of this. I was in Johannesburg, South Africa, many years ago, staying in a hotel in South Africa, in Johannesburg, downtown. And as I checked in, they told me, do not leave this hotel or you will die. Really? Yeah, you pull into the hotel, there's a gate. The whole place is guarded. You know, stay in the hotel. Do not leave here. Do not take a walk down the street because you will probably not come back. It's like, wow, how did you get here? I said, well, this was a Jewish community years ago. And all of a sudden, just within weeks, all the Jews left that area of Johannesburg. And guess what? Esau, darkness, moved in. Because the love of Torah, because people will depart from the Torah, darkness will begin to prevail. You and I upholding the Torah holds back the darkness. But as people continue to move back from the Torah, and we're not talking about just, I was having a conversation with someone the other day of, nobody knows who I'm talking about, so don't try to put in names here. I was having a conversation with someone that they were explaining how a friend of theirs will not eat any meat that's not kosher, rabbinically stamped, but has no problem watching horror movies in their home. Excuse me. We have a problem here in that people aren't thinking right. They're thinking that Torah is just about these external things when there's many aspects of Torah that are about us, our whole life. Don't congratulate yourself for not eating a bacon cheeseburger when you're sitting there watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Bachelor or The Bachelorette or all this other debauchery that's flowing out of that little box in your living room. Don't congratulate yourself because you're planning for Sukkot while you're ingesting the filth of this world. Have I gotten everybody to turn off today? Am I close?
Bereshit, Genesis chapter 1, says that darkness was on the face of the deep. And the spirit of Elohim moved on the face of the waters, and Elohim said, let light come to be, and light came to be. Yeah. And Elohim saw the light, that it was tov, it's good. Elohim separated the light from the darkness. Yochanan chapter 1 says that the darkness did not comprehend the light. You can't be a mixture of the two. The one thing that Yah hates worse than open sin is mixture.
Yeah.
I'll say that again. You would be better off living an open, sinful life than to mix the two together.
Yeah.
Yeshua said, if you're lukewarm, I'll spit you out of my mouth. We have to decide, are we going to be light or are we going to be darkness? And you cannot be somewhere in between. Well, I'm mostly light. Not good enough.
Yeah. That's
not what Yah has called us to be. We are to strive to be sons of light. It's time to put off, Rav Shul said, the garments of darkness and put on the armor of light and live a light, righteous lifestyle. You said Esau a while ago. Esau is the epitome and the embodiment of mixture, of darkness. What's interesting is that Esau and Yaakov, darkness and light, they are twins. There are physical differences between them, but they share a root. And they have the same sound of voice. Their voices are similar enough that when Yaakov went in impersonating Esau, the skin is Esau, the voice is Yaakov. But it was close enough that Yitzhak or Isaac accepted whoever was in his tent as Esau. There's a difference of tone. There's a slight difference. But to the casual hearer, they sound the same. My brother Greg is 8 years younger than I. There are some physical similarities, but you can easily tell which one is which.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been told over and over again that when you talk to us on the phone, our voice is almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad used to have to ask me, is this Greg or is this Barry? Which one? He couldn't figure out who was calling. Mom has the same issue at times. When I say that, what I'm saying is the words of those that are in darkness and the words of those that are in light need to become more clarified as to who is who. Too often, Mike, our words of light and dark are too similar. We need to be clarified in who we are. We need to be more distinct in what it is that we're saying. And we need to be much more obvious that we're not darkness, we're light. Well, to do so is to put a target on our back. Welcome to the house of Yehuda's issues.
I've said a few things here that we do that today.
If you are Jewish and you are identifying yourself as Jewish, you are a target. The rest of the world will not accept you. The Jews it's the Jews on this side and the Goyim, the nations, on the other. Vastly outnumbered, vastly outmanned, outgunned, etc. But they do not give up their identity. Those who do try to blend in with the Goyim. As those in pre-Nazi Germany, when Nazism came to power, they rooted out even those that were Jewish but didn't have any Jewish identity or practice or affiliation. They still rooted them out and lumped them all together.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the bigger thing, though. It's not just being identified with Yehuda or the Jews. Mike, our Messiah, our Redeemer, our Savior is a Jew. And if we're going to be identified with Yeshua, if we're going to be found in Yeshua, then we're going to have to accept him for who he is. We cannot remake him as a man or a redeemer of the Goyim alone.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeshua is a Jew. What changed and rocked my world in 2001, standing on Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem, was the realization that my Messiah is more like the Jews who are on this street than me.
Than the Christians on your street. Yeah. You mentioned, the fellowship of light and darkness. People that are walking a mixture today. I, for the most part, do not put as much blame on the people that are walking out that mixture as I do on the leaders that are teaching a mixture. And I dare say that, I wish I could back off of this statement, but I haven't backed off of any yet today, that there are many Messianic Hebrew roots teachers that are also teaching a mixture. They're not standing up for issues. They're not calling out what is clean and what is unclean. And I'm not talking just about bacon at the moment. They're not giving a complete counsel of teaching of what should not be allowed in our lives. Stand up and say that Harry Potter is demonic. Don't beat around the bush with it. Stand up and say that the filth that's coming over, through your television is just that, it's filth. Leaders need to be people of conviction instead of people of lukewarm, let's just tickle itching ears, as Shaul would say to Timothy. My counsel to people is this: surround yourself with people of conviction. Don't surround yourself with people of compromise.
Mm.
If you surround yourself with people of compromise, you will compromise. If you surround yourself with people of conviction, I'm working on a thought for the day to post here in a few days. I don't know when, but I'm working on one that a person that has your best interest in mind will at times make you uncomfortable. A person that has a person that has their best interest in mind will make you comfortable. A person that has your best interest in mind will at times make you uncomfortable because they will tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Don't surround yourself with people that just make you comfortable all the time. Make sure you got some people in your life that are making you uncomfortable. Those are the people that are your greatest blessing in life.
The yes men around you will applaud you while you remain stagnant.
They'll applaud you in your sin.
Yeah. With that, Mike, we've run out of time, bro.
It might be a good thing. I don't know. I may not need to go any farther here today than what I have.
Today's word is not one to cause a feel-good response. It's by necessity, not just by design, but by necessity, designed to be provoking, challenging, bringing forth contemplation and searching. May Yah make us all light.
There you go.
Amen. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button, for liking, and for even hitting the bell on the bottom of or on the page there. And we encourage you, share this video with those on your social media pages that otherwise may not have a connection to it. And for that, we say thank you. We'll see you again next week.
See you, Barry.